Well, I got quite the mess going on, and that is because it finally arrived. Woo! The Pelton wheel. Very exciting. So basically, right, so the water comes down the pipe, goes in here, and then if we look inside, these little nozzles spin this wheel here, and that's what generates the power. Spin this little generator on the top here. Cool little machine. And how I think I'm gonna do it, so I have this guy here, so this is gonna go on here. So this is a 3" to 1.5" reducer, so that's gonna go on the pipe that I currently have in the Powerhouse. It's gonna come to here, it's gonna go straight through to that first nozzle, so that first nozzle is definitely gonna have the most power. And then to get it to that second nozzle there, I kind of made this thing here. So it's going to look like that. So you're going to have your main water coming in through there. It's going to come around here, and then this is a shutoff valve so that I can turn the second nozzle on or off depending on the flow and the power I need. And that's going to go all the way around and then into that second nozzle there. And I just made all of this with, this is all schedule 40, 1.5" schedule 40 with yeah, all these little bits and pieces here. And then, so I've just basically roughed all this in. So still need to glue it all together and set it up. And then for the drain, basically what I'm thinking is it needs to be a watertight seal. So the water is going to be shooting in there, spinning this thing around, and then needs to drain out. So to help with the vibration and everything, I made this little foam square, and then I'm going to have this on top of the foam square. So those are each 3" holes, and then through each of these 3" holes is going to be this drain here. It's probably hard to see here, so I'll have to do it. It'll make more sense when you can see in the Powerhouse. But anyway, that is the idea. We'll see it when it's all put together. So just using this construction adhesive, we're going to attach the hard piece of plastic to the foam, and hopefully this will adhere it and make a waterproof seal. Oh shoot, I think I put it on upside down. Just kidding. So we got the plastic base glued to the foam. And now we're gonna put another bead of this, the construction adhesive, around here, and then we're gonna sit the housing of the Pelton down onto that adhesive, and that should seal it and waterproof it. And then we're gonna put these bolts down through the housing here, through the foam, through the plastic, and just kind of like squish everything together to hopefully create like a nice waterproof seal. So attempt number 2. When we went to drill the holes in the housing here, the adhesive was still wet, and so everything was sliding around and it didn't work at all. So we took everything off, we scraped it all off, we cleaned it up, and now then I drilled the holes, and now we're putting it back together. And as an added measure of security, once we get this on, I think I'll run a bead of caulking inside here and around, just to make sure that this is super watertight. And then it'll be adhesive with caulking, and then we'll do the same thing, adhesive here with base plate, and then caulking around the outside of that. And all of that should keep the water, because it's going to get pretty hectic in here with those jets spinning this thing. Okay, so we got the foam adhered and caulked to the housing of the Pelton wheel. I've got the adhesive on for the base plate, so I'm going to put that on now. Oh, this isn't it. Never mind, redo.
The holes line up better now?
That's better. And now we can put our bolts in. And the bolts will just kind of like, whoosh, hopefully squeeze everything together and make sure that it's super watertight. All right, she is done for the day. So yeah, we have the bolts in. I have it caulked down to the foam there, and then underneath, so when we tighten the bolts, they tighten right up against that plastic, which is super nice. So hopefully between that, the caulking around here, the caulking around the top, the bolts kind of holding everything together, hopefully that'll keep all the water coming out of that guy contained. And then tomorrow this is kind of the drain that we've figured out, so that'll go into there just like that, and it'll come out from there. These are two 3-inch holes, so that's 6 total inches of drainage, and it'll come down that pipe, around an elbow, open to a 4-inch pipe, and then out the 4-inch pipe and back to the creek. But yeah, we've kind of, I hope this works, because if it doesn't, we've kind of created a monster if we need to get back in there for any reason. But yeah, I don't know, she looks pretty good. All right, so we had this whole base thing drying overnight. It looks really good today, and I did that first so that there was room to drill all these bolts before this was glued in place. But this has all been dry fit, so it's still loose. Just gonna glue this all together, and then I think we bring it to the Powerhouse, and we have it set up so the wires come out the back here, and then they'll be out of the way. They'll go straight down to connect to that 10-3 wire that we pulled the other day. And I was gonna do it, but I got distracted because guess what showed up? Everything else. So that's really exciting. Not sure exactly what's in there, but we'll dig into that later. Last piece of the puzzle. You only get one shot, one opportunity. Give it everything you got. And just like that. Let's hope it fits in the hatch to get down to the basement. The power has arrived. Look how happy he is. So again, this is our 3-inch to 1.5-inch reduction, so that's going to go into here. There is enough room between the end of the pipe and the wall for it to go. We're just going to make a temporary brace, so when we plug it into the end of the pipe, it's supported. So we're just going to make a temporary brace, then plug it in, glue it in place, and then build the drain. We are gluing, cementing the last pieces of 3-inch PVC in the Powerhouse so that we can connect the micro hydro. It's the union. So you glue one side onto the pipe, one side onto the micro hydro, and then this will let me take the micro hydro off the pipe. I can disconnect the micro hydro here if I need to do anything to it or take it out for any reason, which won't happen. It'll live here forever, just the way it is, and everything is going to be great. microhydro's next. I'm scared. Well, we saved the most challenging piece for last, for sure. This is our 3" to 1.5" bushing. And this 3.5, this 3" didn't quite fit inside whatever this pipe is. So we actually had to go through, I don't know if you can see, but we had to go through and sand the inside of this pipe so it actually fit over top of this one.
Don't kick that over.
And so this, oh, just kidding, we totally tested it before and it worked this good. Oh, it's beautiful. There we go. And so that's, oh, you can see the nozzle through if you look down here. See right through to the nozzle. That's 3" to 1/4" and about a foot coming from 140 psi. All right. Now we mount the micro hydro. All right, so this is our 2 3" drain pipes coming out from the bottom of the micro hydro. And they're gonna attach to this pipe here, which is ever so slightly downhill, thankfully. And then that pipe takes the water, that'll take it back out to the creek. And this is the other part of the drain here, so these should fit up into there, like that. This. Oh, it's so close. All right, we're in. Where are we at now? We're good. So that's the drain connected.
What are you doing under here?
Here. And water's going to be flowing downhill. We just got to put some caulking in around here and around here to keep the water from leaking out around these pipes. And then it's go time, baby! Well, there's nothing left to do. We have the 3" HDPE coming into our compression fitting, switching to our Schedule 40 PVC. We have 140 PSI coming straight into the gate valve, which is closed right now. We have our union, which can isolate our micro hydro if I ever need to do any work on it. We have it going straight into 1/4" nozzle. I'm turning the second nozzle off. And then we have our vibration dampening watertight seal at the bottom. And then this is the drain pipe coming down and exiting the powerhouse. So there's nothing left to do but to let it rip. Here we go. Wow, that's a big leak. So we've identified the leak is actually here, where it goes into the box. So that's where the nozzle's connecting into the box there. And then there's another leak right there. So we'll have to go in through the bottom and I guess try and tighten those nozzles or figure out why it's leaking against the box like that. These connections came already on the box, so we've just attached to those. It's leaking at both of them, and I know we tightened one of them, but anyway, we got to take all the bolts off. We're going to cut this seal off, take the drain out, peel the foam off, and we'll go in from the inside and see if we can figure out what's going on. So we are troubleshooting round 1. Just cut the foam off of the bottom of the micro hydro so we can get up underneath it and see if we can tighten down these nozzles from the inside, because that's where it's leaking from. So we knew we had have to take the foam off to get into there eventually. I just didn't think it would be less than 3 seconds after turning it on, but good to know. All right, so we are now looking up into the housing, and this is the nozzle. So this is where it was leaking, was in between this nozzle and the outside. And after we undid this, we saw that it's just this kind of like spacer, this like bushing, and then that's metal. So it's basically just metal on metal here, with nothing in between the threads. So no tape, no dope. So that's probably why it was leaking. So we're just gonna probably tape this, put some pipe dope on, and then reassemble this, tighten the crap out of it in, and then hopefully that'll prevent this from leaking. And we'll try her again. And we're going to do the same thing for this one. So both nozzles. And upon further inspection, this is the male threads that the nozzle goes onto. This is the bushing, or the spacer, that goes on here. The nozzle goes on top. So it doesn't really matter how waterproof we make the threads, because this, between the bushing and the housing, is never going to be waterproof. It's like plastic on metal. And so this hole in here, the water is always going to go through there and spew outside. And there's always going to be water in here, because this is it. So we are going to build, basically, we're going to take a little piece of resisto, or weather stripping, or ice shield, or whatever you want to call it, and we're going to put that around this here, basically creating a gasket. And then with the gasket here, between the plastic and the metal, when the nozzle goes on and gets tightened down, it'll tighten this to the metal, and that'll create a watertight seal around there. There won't be a watertight seal between the nozzle, which is here. So between the nozzle and this plastic, there won't be a watertight seal, but there's not enough threads sticking out to do a gasket on this side and a gasket on this side, or I won't be able to catch those threads with this nozzle. We're figuring it out, and hopefully that will be solution number 1. And we'll test that. Okay, so we had to involve help from neighbor Chase. Every time I say, my neighbor had this, or I'm borrowing that, that's who I'm talking about. But we got the micro hydro out from where we have it kind of like mounted here. We're still trying to figure out what exactly the issue is. And I think it's a bunch of different issues. The main one being there's no seal between here and the housing, that metal housing. And then when this spacer is on, oops, goes on this way, and then the nozzle goes on, there's only this, like that thickness of the threads for the nozzle to catch on. And because there's not enough threads, it doesn't engage the gasket in the nozzle. So when this gets screwed on, it's tight and it doesn't feel like that gasket is engaged. So it's leaking quite heavily inside this nozzle, which is blowing the water back through the hole in the bushing. And because there's no seal between the bushing and the metal housing, that's where the water is spewing out here and dripping down. So to fix that, we made this little gasket here that's going to go on the outside of the housing. And that's going to give the metal housing something to push up against. Then it's going to be, we're going to put the housing back on. We're going to put the spacer back in. So we still have the issue of the gasket in the nozzle not engaging. So we have this extra gasket that's now going to go inside the nozzle like that. And with that extra bit of thickness in the gasket, now when this gets screwed on here, you can feel that gasket engage. So with the extra gasket here and this one on the outside, hopefully, fingers crossed, when we put it back together, we'll do that for that nozzle and that nozzle. That'll keep the water from getting from inside the housing from getting outside. So I don't know. We'll try that and see how she goes. Woohoo! Okay, so we have our gasket now in between the housing and the nozzle. And then on the inside, we still have our spacer. We have pipe thread, pipe dope, and an extra gasket on here. And that's all tightened together. And it looks like it's still pretty close to those wheels, which is good. So we'll put the bottom back on, put her back together, and cross our fingers. Okay, we got her all back together with all the gaskets and everything. We didn't reseal the whole drain system though, so we're expecting that to leak, but we're basically just gonna watch the two nozzle connections there and there to see what happens. But cross your fingers. Which way's open? This way?
Nope.
Well, we're doing better than last time.
That's what you were doing.
Okay, no leak. No leak. Ooh! It's working! Wow, look at it go. Well, the good news is we survived. And the better news is this thing survived. Luckily, thanks to some, very methodically placed banding. But our homemade joint, shockingly, didn't hold. The gate valve was probably only open, 3%. But that exploded pretty quick. So, I guess we get to see version 2.0. 3.0? 3.0. Not sure what to do yet, but we gotta fix that. But the leaks didn't leak, so that's nice.